Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad, and to my left,
Benjamin B.
Finally made an appearance. I've been pumping these out by myself, Ben.
I know. I feel bad. I do watch them.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you enjoy them?
Yeah, they're pretty good. I'm always impressed.
Did you see my Christmas one?
I didn't see the Christmas one.
Oh,
I saw the Don't Cut Corners. What was the other one you just did?
Well, I did a Christmas one, but I haven't released it yet.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah. It's good. It's Christmas cheer.
Yeah, you went all out. I actually walked in on you setting it up.
Yeah, I was pretty proud of myself. All right. So anyways, first things first, thank you for tuning in to this podcast. Obviously, Ben and I, it's our goal to help you turn your mess into your message. And ultimately, if you hear something that resonates with yourself or you think that it might resonate with somebody else, feel free to share it with them. You can obviously email us to tom@realrecoverytalk.com and ben@realrecoverytalk.com. Basically, what we're going to do is answer you, and we're going to ask you for your phone number so we can have a conversation with you about your specific situation and hopefully give you some helpful insight.
Insight and suggestions.
Okay. All right. So in today's episode, what we want to discuss is when people waste their time. And I think this is something that we don't oftentimes talk enough about. People, when they enter into treatment, you ultimately have two decisions. You make one of two decisions. Either you're all in and you do everything that's to be expected of you, and you gain insight into your addiction, and you learn the coping skills necessary to stay sober, and you practice these things on a daily basis. You build a solid network of sober people, so on and so forth. Or you don't, and you do nothing. Or on a surface level, it makes it you appear as if you're doing a lot, but in actuality, you're not buying into anything that you're doing. And unfortunately, Ben and I have seen this all too many times over the years. And we have a situation that's kind of fresh that this has happened. And I thought that it would be a good opportunity to kind of share with you some of the things that we see inside of treatment with particular clients and how they present and stuff like that. Because it's really unfortunate that when you see somebody complete 90 or 120 days worth of treatment, and you just have this odd suspicion that at first opportunity to drink when they leave, they're going to.
I feel like it's pressing the restart button in a way. Like, oh, if I drink, I can redo this whole process, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which can be sad. So with Tom leading off with that, one thing that I want to touch on, I don't know exactly where you were going to start, but there does come a point in the treatment process where, like, we got to push people out the nest. You know, you spend 4 months with us here at Rock, you know, and if someone needs a little bit more time and it's measurable, the therapist is like, yes, this person will benefit from more time. We do occasionally come across situations where somebody, you know, hits the end and it's like too little, too late, so to speak, if that makes sense. And, you know, something that we run into a lot of times is people will do 90, 120 days. On day 119, they're like, oh, can I extend for another 3 months? Now I want to do this. And it's, you know, we sit back as a treatment team and say, like, at this point, is something really going to change by giving somebody more time? Or are they just kind of sitting idly and comfortably? One of the telltales that jumps out to me, you know, we have these levels of care that we've described before on the podcast: detox, residential, PHP, IOP, or titrating down in you come in doing a ton of treatment, so to speak, doing a lot of therapy, group counseling, etc., and that dwindles off as real life kicks in. And when somebody's in IOP, one of the red flags that I get a lot of times is that, you know, most of the time people are getting tired of going to groups by the time they're in IOP, which is a good thing. Like, it's time to start doing life, and we're there to put a hand out, you know, when you're struggling, if you just start a new job, whatever the life on life's terms is hitting. But one thing that's always a red flag to me is when someone's like, they'll go to our staff and say, "Hey, can I come to this extra night group? I already went this morning." But it's kind of like, what are you doing with your time? At some point, like, you're trying to come to every single group that we offer, which is what you do in the beginning. Like, why are you trying to do it at the end? At the end, you should be starting to do less groups, but then in that free, quote unquote, free time you have, you should be utilizing everything that Tom was talking about with the having the sober supports outside of rock or whatever respective program that you're in, etc. Like going to meetings, going to work, doing those kinds of things. Like, I get really concerned when someone's like, "Oh, can I come to the extra groups?" Because that tells me right there most of the time that they haven't quite figured out anything beyond like, hey, if I show up to 100% of the groups and get perfect attendance, I'm doing this thing correctly. And I will say, and this is my opinion, there's treatment centers out there that will convince people that they're doing the recovery thing by having perfect attendance for groups and doing extra groups. There has to be a balance and there has to be a switch off as time goes on.
Yeah, I think you put that perfectly. And the only thing I would add to that is we have clients sometimes that have been here for an extended period of time, but I forget they're a client here. For instance, I'll come in and it's, a morning group or whatever. Our morning groups run from 9:30 to 12:30, Monday through Friday. And I'll see so-and-so sitting there. And I'm like, "Oh, so-and-so, good to see you. I haven't seen you in forever." But what does that show? Because this is kind of one of those things, out of sight, out of mind. If I see you every single day, both groups, you're kind of always hanging around the center or whatever. You're coming to all the groups. You're, again, on a surface level, appears like it's a good thing. But if you're doing that for 90 days, you're doing that for 120 days, that means you've become severely dependent on us. Mm-hmm. And that is the exact opposite of what we want for people when they, and not just us, any treatment center for the most part. I mean, at least that's what they should want, is for when a client comes in here day 1 to 30, I expect to see you every day. I do. I expect you to be at every group. I expect you to have all of your individual sessions, to do all your clinical work, to go to all the meetings, so on and so forth. It's to be expected. But once you pass that and you go into IOP level of care, now you need to go out and either get a job, go to school, start volunteering, building your sober network outside of Rock Recovery Center. I should be seeing less and less of you. And then when you get to day 90 or day 120, I should see you maybe 1 or 2 days a week. That's it. And then when I see you, the conversations are steered around, man, my job's going really well. I'm on whatever step. Maybe I've completed the steps. I have my relationship back with my son or daughter or my mom or dad. And it's something that we can come together and have a conversation around that has substance. But when we have these conversations with people that are 90, 120 days sober, and the same conversation is the conversation that I had with you the day before, which I had with you the day before, which I had with you the day before. Why don't you have a sponsor yet? Why haven't you gotten a job yet? Why haven't you done X, Y, and Z? Those are the people. They complete 120 days here, they're screwed when they leave here. And that's the unfortunate truth, is what we see, not rather often, but once is too many. We want our clients to come in and get what they need, and at the end, they don't need us anymore.
We don't want to become your unhealthy family. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to blow out your eardrum there, Tom.
Start that over.
We don't want to become your unhealthy family, basically. We're trying to undo a lot of the patterns that people come in with an active addiction. And there does come a point where treatment centers, therapy, therapists, etc., do become more enabling, so to speak. And, uncomfortable conversations happen. Like, I will tell you, it does pull up my heartstrings, the same as it does a family. If you have a son or daughter in treatment, where like you're telling them like you need to go away, and it's a healthy you need to go away, and the client will sit back, oh my God, they don't care about me anymore. No, we do care about you. I'd rather step on your toes than step on your grave and tell you the truth and say, hey, this is time for you to spread your wings and go. And if they say to us like, I can't do this without you, then something got missed, without a doubt. And I hate seeing that. We do not want to duplicate that same family dynamic, those enablers, whatever the case may be, here in treatment. Like we have clients come here so that we can show them the opposite, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when you see this. I mean, so what we wanted to do is give you a couple or a few tangible kind of benchmarks that we look for when somebody is in treatment. So what we wanted to do, besides going on our rants, and we can do that rather often, we wanted to give you a few kind of benchmark things that we look for people when they kind of go through the treatment process that helps us gauge, okay, you're doing well or you're not doing well. And I'll go first. The first one that I look for is group participation.
We do have to have the understanding, like people come in here a little nervous, so I'll be straightforward. Sometimes I have a little high expectations that somebody's going to come into the first group and, jump on it and share everything and be super comfortable. But, I realize that we have to give people, sometimes a week or two. But about week 2, if somebody's not starting to open up in the group process or with their therapist, like at that point, it does become concerning. By day 30, somebody should be well in the swing of being open, being vulnerable, being authentic, being willing to tell their therapist the deep, intimate stuff that they want to work on, whether that's trauma or family dynamic stuff or stuff along those lines. But yeah, I'm with you on that one, Tom. I definitely want to see group participation, all that within the first 30 days.
What would be yours?
Within the first 30 days, one thing, the thing that comes to mind for me in 30 days, a lot of times is the adjustments with people come from detox residential, and when necessary, and it is medically necessary a lot of the times, is someone being on medications, for instance. A lot of the actual medication adjustments happen in the PHP level of care because somebody gets put on medication and detox in residential. That's where they're starting them, but it's not enough time to see whether they work or not for that person. Within the first 30 days of PHP, like we do, I want to see somebody, being med compliant so we know what works and what doesn't work for them, and being open to taking those kinds of suggestions. I can't tell you, we have a lot of conversation with our medical doctor here who prescribes for our clients. And a lot of the times, the clients sit down and with her, and one of the things that they get is a lot of times they're basically writing their own program. You didn't come to our program so that you can be your own doctor, so to speak. We're gonna do things that are in your best interest, right? And at this point, Tom and I have literally worked with thousands of people. So is our doctor, Dr. T. We have a lot of experience with this. We're not gonna over-medicate people, but I'd like to see in the first 30 days people being like, as far as medications go, medication compliance.
So you got group participation, and I'm going to lump in there, obviously, anything within clinical confines. So obviously listening and participating in group, taking advantage of your therapist when you have your one-on-one sessions. Don't go in there, just twiddle your thumbs, actually, because if somebody's with us for 90 to 120 days, you're having average anywhere from 12 to 16 individual sessions in the course of treatment. That's not that much, because you get one a week. And what we see oftentimes, and again, we have a client currently that hopefully not now, but fell into this trap, I suppose, of he didn't want to do anything the first month he was here. And me and his therapist had to sit down, and I had to really tell him, hey, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but you probably only have maybe 8 sessions left with your therapist. And as each week goes by, it's less and less and less opportunity for you to gain the growth from your therapist. Like, your therapist is there for a reason, and obviously, we had a conversation around it and stuff, but the first 30 days he kind of blew off, didn't really do a whole lot, both in groups and with his therapist. So within the clinical confines, I think it's important to note that it's everything clinical. Groups, individual sessions, you got to participate, you got to really get involved, case management sessions, stuff like that. You got to advocate for yourself, start thinking in terms of, okay, what does my future look like and what are the steps that I can get there? And we want to see all this stuff to start kind of playing out in the first 30 days. And I like what you said about the med compliance stuff.
You just brought something to mind for me too, and we've talked about this previously a lot. We touch on it. Our therapists here at Rock are phenomenal. They are amazing. But at the same time, their skills and abilities can only match that of the willingness of the client. Another thing that I would look for in the PHP level of care, for instance, and this doesn't really get to happen in detox residential because that's more the physical side, if you will. The withdrawals, dealing with the post-acute withdrawal. When somebody gets a PHP, we want to, within those first, hopefully before PHP is over, have an opportunity to identify the majority of what we call in the clinical world the master problem list. Obviously, as you go through a treatment plan over the course of time, like new problems come up or you uncover problems that you didn't realize were problems. But if you don't bring to the table within your first, 2-3 weeks, like the majority of the problems by being honest with your therapist, like a therapist, like Tom was saying, where he was talking to the client the other day who, he only has about 8 sessions left. If you're going to use up your whole PHP stay and then start identifying the problems later down the road, that leaves the therapist no time to help you with the solution. At some point we gotta get past okay, we've identified the problems, now let's start working on the solution. If you spend the entire treatment process like unveiling new problems or problems that were there since the beginning and you just weren't open and just didn't talk about them, like, that's a problem.
Yeah. All right, so let's go past the 30 days when somebody completes the PHP and then they drop down to what's called IOP, which is just intensive outpatient. In our program in particular, they're living with us the whole entire time through all levels of care. But when somebody enters into an IOP level of care, there's more expectations put on them in terms of life skills type stuff and less expectations in terms of clinical involvement. So, when you're in PHP, you're roughly getting anywhere from 30 to 35 hours worth of clinical services per week, groups, individual sessions, so on and so forth. When you drop to IOP, you're falling somewhere between 9 and 15 hours of clinical services per week. That consists of your groups and your individual sessions, case management, so on and so forth. Now, what happens with that other time is more up to the client, which is where we want to now start seeing, okay, what are you doing with your extra time that you now have? Because when you drop from PHP to IOP, you're gaining 20 hours, potentially less, that you're accountable to us. So what are you doing with that 20 hours? Are you going and you got yourself a part-time job at Publix or wherever? Are you working with your sponsor more? Are you volunteering? Are you looking at going to school? What are you filling that time with? Or are you going to the beach every day? Are you going and doing are you sitting at the house and playing video games? Those sorts of things we watch for, because we have a client right now that just dropped to an IOP level of care. And this particular client, when he even I think before he knew he was dropping to IOP, he was already looking for work, and he found a job at Target. And this job at Target started him at 4 o'clock in the morning. So, and this kid's 18 years old. 18 years old, he completes PHP, and he knows as soon as he drops to IOP, he's got a job lined up at Target making $15 an hour, and it starts at 4 o'clock in the morning. He's 18 years old, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and going to work at 4, working from 4 to whatever, 12.
Mm-hmm.
He's got his afternoon, and then he comes to us for the evening groups, fits his meetings in, stuff like that. So I look at somebody like that they dropped from PHP, they got a job, they're starting at 4 o'clock in the morning, he's going to go far. He's going to do well. So as long as he keeps that trajectory.
And I definitely hope in this case that this gentleman does. And just to be transparent, this guy did bring forth concerns, and this is where like IOP is where the intensive outpatient is where the rubber really meets the road. Having to adjust to life, like in PHP and higher levels of care, you're being carted around. You're with staff 24 hours a day. He's at that point where like and this is what I was talking about earlier, tied into this. These are new problems coming up that are an evolution of the treatment process. Like these new things are we don't want to be working on the old stuff because you didn't open up when you're in IOP. We want to be working on the new stuff for those next steps. And that, because again, we don't want to waste time.
Yeah. And I feel proud for this kid.
Definitely.
I really do. And you can even see, like, sometimes I just saw him a couple days ago, and he kind of had some discouragement in his face. And I'm like, what's going on, man? And he's like, the schedules really got me kind of, feeling bad, which I get. Like, I don't listen. How old are we, Ben? 38.
38.
Fun fact: Ben and I are born same day, same year, April 7th, 1984. He's a few hours older than me, so he's my elder. But whatever.
Fun fact.
What?
I had that same exact shift that this guy, when I was in Minnesota, I worked for Target, 3:30 a.m. that shift started.
Did you ever tell him that?
I never actually told him, no.
Were you clean?
For a very short period of time. I should have stayed at Target. I left Target and went back to personal training and bartending like I always did, and it was off to the races. This is why, and Tom said earlier, I really want to see this kid keep this job. The schedule, getting up that early is tough, and it's hard because it's abnormal getting off of work at noon, and, it's going to be tough on him. But once it is regimented, and alcoholics and drug addicts in early recovery, we need a schedule. He'll get used to it. I really, really want to see this kid keep this job, literally because I made the mistake of going to something that made me more comfortable.
Yeah.
And 2020 hindsight, like, it was a mistake for me. I'd like to see him stick this out.
All right, so for the sake of time, let's keep moving. We only have a few minutes left, but so we have group participation, obviously all the clinical stuff. We have med compliance. We're going to look at that. We're going to look at how you're utilizing your downtime when you drop levels of care.
I want to say one more thing about the IOP level of care. And PHP level of care, and this goes for most treatment centers, like we take our clients to outside meetings, but they all go on the van to the meeting that we go to. And, the meetings we take them to, in my opinion, are good meetings. However, like, we do have to work it around our schedule. So if we're taking them to a 12-step clubhouse, such as Oasis, Triangle Club, Easy Does It, whatever the case may be, it has to fit the schedule for us as a staff. But in IOP, what I also want to see them do is start branching out, as Eric would put it, one of our employees, go find your tribe. Find your home group, find the meetings that have the people that you want to be around in recovery. And I see a lot of clients, they'll just kind of stick to the ones that we introduce them to, which isn't a bad thing. If they love them, they love them. Cool. But at the same time, like, I really want to see clients starting to branch out and try new things on their own too. And that includes going to different meetings.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's one of the biggest things that we look for. That was literally my next one was we look at the community that people build outside of Rock Recovery Center, because we're a short period of time. I remember one person I was in treatment with. Now, this goes back many years, but point is that the people that they are currently in treatment with, they will not know months from now. They won't remember who they are. And everybody says, oh, that's not true. We build good friendships and we make good relationships. And Tom, you don't understand. This guy, like I
signed each other's big books.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Signed
like
each other's big books. Like, yeah, like you're back in high school.
Middle school yearbook, yeah.
Like, get out of here. Anyways, go out and build your own community of people. Like, we take these people to meetings, but Uber is a great thing. Lyft is a great thing. People have cars. Like, I don't understand how or why they won't go out and build their own community. That for me was probably and is the number one most important thing, in my opinion, in staying sober is the people that you surround yourself with. And it's not even a close comparison for me.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And that's one thing that Tom's really good at. I watch him do it all the time. He goes out, meets new people all the time, people that interest him, people that know more about a topic than he does, and I'm the same way. I've gotten really good at going out when it comes to my recovery and finding new groups of people to be around. Like, I'll try out a new meeting, I'll hear a message and be like, a lot of times it's the same message, but it's said differently. And in my opinion, that makes me more useful, more effective when I figure out different ways to communicate the same thought, because I constantly have to grow, So even though a lot of the principles are the same, hearing it explained in different ways, different analogies, metaphors, like that's where my growth continues to happen. And I've gotten really good at, I could show up to a meeting and show up to that same meeting for weeks in a row, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, I know the whole room of people, and they become brothers in recovery, sisters in recovery.
Yeah. All right. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for watching. Hope this helps. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns about your specific situation, you could always reach out to us. Tom at realrecoverytalk.com and Ben at realrecoverytalk.com. That is it. We will see y'all later.